start coming, so I'm starting the recording. Okay. Meanwhile, there's Tommy Bear for you. Okay, we'll see you in probably about 40 minutes. And folks will start coming on.
Well done.
Bye.
A little less glare here. Looks like George Farrick coming on.
Hi, Johnny. Can you hear me?
Hey, George, I hear you fine. Yes.
Oh, good. I'm driving in my car.
And you look good in the shades.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, these are Joe Biden shades. You know, I went to a local optometrist, to get this pair of glasses. And he said, and I told him what I wanted, and he said, I just made a pair for my dad, so I'll make the same ones for you. Johnny, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I cannot see you.
Well, that's fine because I'm driving, so I don't want to be distracted by somebody looking at me.
Okay. So I can talk with
Yes,
you,
well,
but not look at you. I get it.
yeah. So one thing I thought of this morning was it's it's thanks to you and George that I've been part of this group. And on these
Hey, John.
calls here.
I am so happy about that. Hi, Tim.
Hey, Johnny, how are you, my friend?
I am quite well.
Tom
George
Welbers
Ferrick-
looks.
George
Tom Welbers
Ferrick
looks good, doesn't he?
is driving, so he's on with audio, but not with video.
Okay, and
Yeah.
Tom Welbers looks nice in his pink boat, doesn't he?
Yes, no long face.
No, yeah, and no criticisms of us. How are you, John? How did the week go?
The week went very well, and this place, my daughter Krista has been over a couple of times, and she said, "Daddy, this is like you're on a cruise."
That's nice.
Well,
And did you get to your new church on Sunday?
I did not.
Okay.
I will next Sunday, but I wasn't up for it. Hi, Ned.
Hi, John.
Hey, Ned.
Okay.
Good morning. Good morning to
Good
you.
morning. How are you guys?
We're good. We're good.
When you see that bridge, George Ferrick is with us, but he's driving.
Oh, hi, George.
He's
Yeah,
got us
hi there.
audio.
Hi.
I
Yeah,
got
I have
your
to do
message
some
when
errands.
I got your message and started to read it, and it got too long, so I'll be doing it later.
I thought
Okay.
you were a speed reader.
Are you kidding? Anything but.
Do you remember? I guess we were in high school. Is they hired some woman to come in and teach us speed reading?
Oh,
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
I still have my notes from that.
Wow.
Ferrick,
Yeah.
Ferrick, you must have piles of crap lying around from high.
No, I only keep very important things. But my wife thinks she agrees with you, Tim. And that's why I'm kind of doing the Bob No scene of trying to clean things up. She'll be very happy if I clean it up. But it's a very small 2 or 3 pages of notes, but it's really invaluable. I think it was you remember the Evelyn Wood speed reading course?
Yes.
Yeah,
Very much.
Yeah.
So that's it. So if you want, I can send you the notes.
no, thank you. No, thanks.
I'll pass.
No.
Thank you.
I
No,
would
I'll
like
pass.
George, do please send me the notes. I'm the
Yeah.
slowest reader.
Okay. You know what she says to do is when you get a book, just kind of page through it real quickly. Notice if there's italics or quotes or anything. Just browse through it, look at the table of contents, start paging through it, see if there are any chapters interesting. Go to the index, the acknowledgments, and then so you do that like in 5 minutes, and then you go back to reading the parts that you want to. So that's it in a nutshell.
I guess I don't need you to send it.
No, I'll send it to you. No, I'll send it to you. I think you might. Yeah, but that is it. Yeah.
That's cool. I've tried a jillion things, including even.
Okay. Well, I'll send it to you if I can find it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tim, we've got the top of your head. What's up?
Actually,
No,
I'm in the
that's-
bathroom.
That's
I'm
a
in the bathroom.
backup
Oh, that's
chair.
not the top of your head. That's the chair.
Hey,
No, it's my
George.
chair.
George,
I'm in the bathroom doing my nails.
doing
Oh,
your
yeah.
nails.
Got it.
George, what is it about that poet and that you know, his driving down the street and seeing this dead doe and then pulling her and all that kind of stuff. What is it that really struck you about that?
What poem is?
Well, it's the
Uh,
latest message that I have from you about this poet who it looked like it was an old recording, but a poet was driving down a wooded road, and he saw a lump of something and stopped because it was prominent on the road. And it was a dead.
Oh, that's, yeah, that's the wrong video. The video that I sent was the one line. So the video is YouTube shows one video.
Can you hear
puts
me?
it up, the algorithm.
Hi, Bob.
So I didn't mean to send that one to you. Yeah.
Okay.
John, sounds like
Yeah,
George is out there.
He's driving, and so he's got a bridge here for us.
Tom looks a
Yeah.
little, Weber's looks a little hairier than usual.
Yeah. That nice bow around his neck is.
I like the bow.
Festive.
I like the bow a lot. It's cardinal red. Ooh. How you guys doing?
Oh, good. Thank you. Thanks.
Good.
How
Thank
about
you.
How are you doing, Bob?
Yeah, doing fine. Yeah, we haven't had a rather unusual July. It's been considerably un-July-ish for the Bay Area. Not a lot of fog in the Bay Area. A little warmer than usual. Usually this is July into August is, the equivalent of down south there, that June gloom. Up here, July and August, sometimes you don't see the sun right up against the coast, but it's nice and cool.
Well,
But
I
it's
wish we had that here.
very unusual. I can tell from looking at my tomato plants.
They talk to you.
They don't go into, yeah, they do. They don't go into hibernation. And they haven't gone into hibernation, which they usually do. And so that nice weather. Beautiful again. Yeah. Things are going. Things
I
are
envy
going.
you.
Is that George in the background with the Golden Gate?
It is.
Yes.
I think. Hi, George. I think that's
He's
his
driving. Yeah.
Hi there. Yeah, I think I'll sign off for a little bit of time. I'm off to do a couple errands, and then I'll rejoin you. How's that?
Sounds great, George.
Yeah.
Good.
Come back
Okay.
to me. La, da, da, da. Remember that?
Hey, Gibby, knock it off.
Oops.
Gibby's the current foster from guide dogs that I have. He likes to talk. He goes out onto the deck and he talks to people going by on the pathway down below.
How long do you keep these dogs?
Depends on what the need is. This one I've had since April. So
Okay.
he's one of the longest. So I've
That's
had
good.
him up. I've had him up almost up to 6 months. It depends on what the issue is and what what the need is up at guide dogs. For this particular dog, he's still a youngin'. He'll be 2 years old in the fall. And he is in their breeder development program. So from among the pups that they raise, they look at dogs that fit their characteristics for breeders. They pick
Okay.
from, as they say, the creme de la creme. And so he's one of the dogs that fits, except the issue for him. He has some health related issues related to some of the breeding issues. and barking is very unusual in guide dogs. That's one. So the issue is primarily stress. So he's with me in an R&R protocol, which is very nice for him and for me, because I don't have to work very hard with the guide dogs in training, who are non-breeders and going to be handed off if they're lucky enough someday. After they're fully trained, I have to follow a pretty strict protocol when you take them out, even for their daily walk, and behaviorally. But I have them usually for shorter periods of time. This guy's
now what role do you mean? Why do they need you? What role do you play in the process?
These dogs, all retrievers. Any type of retriever you can think of, they have them in their program. Do much better. They thrive in a home environment.
Okay.
Less so in the kennels. Less so when a dog is showing some stress related. The kennels are not a good place for him to be because everything sets them off. And then it becomes a vicious cycle. The stress keeps building. So they do much better in a home environment, because that's where they were started as puppies. Around 8 weeks, they're handed off to qualified puppy raisers, and the puppy raisers follow basic training, very easy stuff. Sit, stay, down. The emphasis on the puppies is on socializing.
We have a couple in the parish. The Farmers are their last name, and they are involved with a group out of Virginia, where they will take a puppy that is going to be trained somehow, therapy, and they will bring that dog to mass. They'll take it to every restaurant. I mean, the dog is, and so when I've not seen them in a good while, but typically they'll come in, and the dog will lie down under the pew.
Right.
And when they go to communion, the dog will go up with them.
Yeah.
And they have this, I think
it's a
they have
jacket.
a vest, a jacket that says like I'm in training or something like that.
Please do not pet me, I'm in training or something. Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing that you say, because these dogs are so wonderful that everyone wants to reach out and pet the dog.
Exactly. So yeah, the model is pretty much the same. The outfit here, Guide Dogs for the Blind, is the largest guide dog prep kennels, because they have a kennel in they have a campus literally on 6-7 acres in Metro San Rafael, California, and Californians would know what that would mean, but they were there 75 years ago when they first started, so they were able to get some lovely property. Then they have really filled it in. It looks like a small college campus at this point, because folks who will be getting the guide dogs will literally stay on campus in residence in the dorms. They're very attractive dorms. And their clinics are there. The puppy raising center is there. So everything is there. And then they have another campus just outside of Portland, Oregon, in the wonderfully named town of Boring.
Mhm.
My sister used to live there.
You know someone who used to live in Boring?
Yeah, my sister and brother-in-law bought a big piece of property. He spent 4 years building a home there. Beautiful, big, huge, 6,000 square foot home.
Yikes! It's a beautiful area, and it's a half hour from downtown Portland.
Yeah,
and it's a half hour, 45 minutes from the wilds of Mount Hood, and right on the highway. So it's lovely going there. But they have their second campus is located in Boring. They have about 20 acres there. And Tim and the rest, since you were interested in asking those questions about the dogs, between the two campuses, their dogs produce between 800 and 1,000 puppies. 800 and 1,000 puppies a year.
wow.
So they're really big. Hi guys, we're having dog talk.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Frank. Hey, Gary.
Pleasure.
Good morning.
Let's go back to people talk. Hey, Frank. Yeah, and there's Gary having his mid-morning snack, breakfast, whatever.
And so
I
I have
recognize.
a question for you, priests and ex-priests.
Don't use that term ex-priest.
There is,
Think of it. There is no such thing as an ex-priest. There, you can't.
that's right.
Look, Herb Cain, he was a columnist in the Chronicle. Someone wrote
Right.
into him once who kept using the term ex-priest. He said, "Don't use that." And he, not particularly theologically, but he said, "Don't use that term." Trying to unpriest a priest is like trying to decircumcise somebody.
Can you do
Well,
that?
I don't
Can
know.
you-
I mean, with modern technology, I think it's even more than that, Bob.
You know what, Frank? I hadn't thought about that. Because
Yeah.
probably
I mean,
with mo-
it's well, never mind.
absolutely with modern technology, you probably can do that. I rudely interrupted you, Tim, but that
No, it was not rude. You were
term-
not rude. You were not rude.
the
Not yet.
term kind of grates on me because it cannot be done. You can talk about non-clerical, non-canonical,
Non-functioning.
well, I don't use that term non-functioning because I continue to
That's true. Yeah, that's
function
true.
pretty much. The
Yeah.
only thing that I don't do publicly is celebrate Eucharist. Notice the term publicly.
Right.
But all the other sacraments, especially as a hospice chaplain,
Yeah.
as one of the hospice chaplains found out, I was don't call us ex-priest, but that I was this was on the staff of the Palo Alto Hospital where they had 3 resident chaplain Catholic priests. And
Okay.
he soon found out, he used to refer to me as the priest in the necktie. And I was there about a week and he called me to his office and come down for a visit. And he said, everything you need for the dying is located right here in this top drawer. And he said, I understand you're located in the hospice unit of the Palo Alto Hospital. So, and he said, no question in my mind that most of the folk you'll be coming in contact with are in proximate danger of dying, which means you're required,
Right.
as the canon says, any
Right.
priest, no matter any priest, any ordained priest, no matter what this priest's status is, which means the legal side of things, is required under pain of, I won't go into all those details, to administer the sacraments of the sick in particular, if requested and or if the priest determines, along with the consult of the physicians, that this person is close to death. So more than enough said. Hi, Fred.
Okay.
Hi, Norm.
Hi.
I think Fred has been trying to get on.
Yeah, he's muted, it looks like.
There he
There's
is.
Fred.
There's
And
Fred.
there he is.
Hey,
Hey,
Fred, how are you?
Hey,
My daughter's in Spain, so I was talking to her. So I'm a little late.
And you're on twice, Fred. There's another.
You have an
Are you?
an
On the
echo.
phone.
How do you do
but
it?
it's-
You-
Do you have a teenager around the house that can help you out?
Well, I think he's on.
No,
He's on the computer and he's
no
on the
one under
phone.
80.
Yeah, you gotta
think-
turn off either the phone or the computer to prevent the echo.
Oh, is that what it is? That's the reason, huh?
Yeah, it's reverberating back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Frank reminded us.
And so my quick question for you, priest and whatever Bob we're going to call Bob, is there a place that I can go where I can find an interpretation of a gospel? We're having this debate in my Curseal group about Matthew 25, where Jesus is saying, if you if you did these things to the least of my brethren, feed the poor and feed the hungry and all that. And if you don't do that, you'll go to hell. And so I have a guy in my group who's saying that he thinks that, that's a pretty strong statement. And he doesn't know if there were any other parts in the Gospels where Jesus said, you either do this or you go to hell. And so I'm wondering, is there something like a commentary on sacred scripture that kind of, what, Gary?
There are thousands of them.
Oh, there are.
You just Google, if you just Google that particular passage, I mean, it will open to so many commentaries but if you want a suggestion as to a contemporary, and I'm going to reflect my complete left-wing orientation and choice, and that is one of the best contemporary commentators for me on the scripture, which I love to go to her, is Joan Chittister.
He's
She
great.
does a-
But
she does a-
if
she
you
does a
want to
great
be
job.
if you want to be a little more mainline, there are
Yes.
two commentaries. One is the Paulist commentary on the scriptures, done by the Paulist fathers, and the Jerome biblical commentary, which is in its third version and has a much more pastoral orientation than the first version did.
And the latter is called the Jerome.
Yeah,
commentary.
the Jerome, right after the Jerome Bible, which was a Jerusalem Bible translation. Jerome. Yeah.
Just here, Tim.
Frank, you remember this?
Oh, thank you, Gare.
I never looked at Peaks. I'm not familiar with it, Bob. So
It was one that I used during my Rome Louvain days, and it's one of the classic ancient commentaries. I appreciate your reference to a couple of modern ones, and in particular,
they've been updated. Updated in the past.
The
5 years. Yeah.
What do you guys think of Sacra Pagina?
I don't know it.
Oh,
I know I read the Sacra Pagina, but I don't know I don't know a commentary that's
Years, because when I got to know Sparky Schultz, he was very interested in things like this. And one day he said to me, "Have you ever heard of the Anchor Bible?" And I said, "Yes, I have." And one day I was so frustrated with golf. I said, "I don't know that I'll see you guys yet next week." Anyway, I got back to the rectory in Ukiah, and there were 5 huge boxes that had been delivered. He gave me the Anchor Bible. That's the commentary that was like each book of the Bible, there's 72 books in the Old Testament? I forget.
And the New.
And the New. Each book was that thick, as thick as that. It's like a 72 volume. It's a library. Anyway, I eventually gave it to a priest, but he gave me a thing called the Interpreter's Bible, which
I've got that too. That's good.
And I got rid of everything except the Gospels. So, Tim, there's a lot of stuff out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Good.
I noticed Tom is looking very good today.
Yes.
And he's amazingly quiet for Tom, isn't he?
Yes, that is amazing.
Yes, we were.
Did anyone read Michael Sean Winter's article this morning on the NCR on the speakers that have been invited to the Eucharistic Congress?
Good morning, Father Norm.
Yeah. They're all Steubenville.
Good morning.
Good morning, Father. How are you doing?
I'm on the TV program. Let me call you back.
Okay.
They're from. He said that a lot of them are from Steubenville.
Correct.
Right. Couple of days ago.
Well, one of them is the CEO of EWTN.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and then Chris Stefanik is very much involved with the Augustine Institute.
He's what?
Augustine.
Very much in the Augustine Institute. So they're all from the right side of the
Yeah.
spectrum. Some of whom do not have any theological degrees. I mean, Bob Barron does, but he's right at home with that crowd.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not representative of the whole church in the United States.
Right.
No, and
So-
it's not representative of any kind of new developments in theology.
No.
Right. It's, as you said, the right, the right wing. And Francis has said and been quoted in quite a number of places, he wants to hear from all voices. I still haven't, I was expecting to read somewhere during the week something from a guy named Frank Daly in Boston advocating for getting parish priests there. But the only thing I came across was something in the NCR about deacons also.
Yeah, what's her name?
Joining the
Joan.
ranks of the parish priests, not going to. Are
Well,
not
I'm still working on that. A friend of mine says send it to him, and he'll see if he can get it published in the Furrow, which is the Irish theological journal.
Oh, well, what
So, but I'm still working. My idea this week is that parish priests are not general practice. They're only general practitioners in the sense that they treat everybody, but they're specialists in the sense that, there's a specialty to being in leadership in a parish that is different in a suburban parish than it is in an urban parish, than it is in a multicultural parish, than it is in a missionary parish, et cetera, et cetera.
And that's why I think Tim's lucky you've got a pastor now who's had missionary experience.
Yes.
And that's all he has had, Gary. He has never had, a traditional, I guess I would call us kind of a semi-urban parish. And can I tell you a funny story last night? And I think that he is surprised about how much organization has to take place as a pastor. So they had scheduled an installation mass for him last night. And in the past, whenever we've had a new pastor, occasionally the bishop would drive the 100 miles from Charlotte and do the installation, walk the guy around the church and say, now here's the baptism, that kind of thing. Well, I don't know what's going on with my bishop. And so a couple of guys locally, a pastor of a parish near here, and then the head of the vicariate, whatever that is, was going to come and they were going to do the installation. And so we had my Curcio group, and it was going to be at 6 p.m. last night, 6 p.m. And my Curcio group gets together at 4, and we there's 8 of us, and we said, well, we all want to go to it. And Sandra wanted to go, and another guy's wife wanted to go. And so I got some pizzas, and we had pizza during our Curcio meeting, and then we go over to the church at about 5:30, for the 6 o'clock service. And it was probably, 50%. The church holds about 1,000. So there were hundreds of people there. And at 6 o'clock, Father Andres comes out and says, well, I'm glad all of you got the best parking places, but I have fouled up. He said, I thought I had an understanding from Father Adrian and this other priest that it would start at 6, and they thought it was going to start at 7. So he said, they're not going to be here for another hour. And Sandra and I are looking at each other and say, shit, because we'd left our dog at home. And so he's good for 3 or 4 hours, but he's not good. And so we were with another couple who was also Chris Eustace, and Father said, well, in 15 minutes, we'll have rosary, and then you can have a half hour of meditation before the mass starts. Well, people were looking around and saying, my goodness, this thing won't get over 3 hours at the minimum. And so we could not stay. But I was thinking on the way home, here is Andres, who has had missions all over Cusco region, the high mountains. probably the idea of having to have all of your ducks in a row when you're running a big parish is kind of new to him, and so, it was, and the other thing that happened, maybe I told you this last week, is that he is a real devout lover of Mary, and so he wanted to have a week ago install the scapula of the Lady of Mount Carmel for everyone in the parish, and so he came out and the church was full, and he said, I was asking someone in the office how many of these I should have, and he said, I thought maybe I should get 50 or 100 of these scapulars. And he said, so I got 300. And he looked out and he said, so I'm going to be about 500 short today. And he said, I'm so embarrassed I'm happy but embarrassed that so many of you have shown up. And so that's 2 for 2 where he has misjudged and not kind of had his ducks in a row in terms of making sure that last night these other priests were going to be here at 6 o'clock, not 7 o'clock. And but you know what? Those are easy things to just forgive and forget about, because he's such a wonderful guy.
He can get. There was in the Diocese of San Jose. I don't know. I think it's one of the biggest parishes in that diocese. I think it's Holy Family. I'm not sure. Or was that in Orange? But there was a priest. He's dead now, named John Sandersfeld. He was a highly regarded priest in this area, and he had a big staff for his parish, and he had an administrator of the parish, somebody who took care of, in my understanding, took care of all the administrative responsibilities in the parish. And that would have to do with scheduling, and probably John would sit, but John, because that was not his skill, he was not a good administrator. He was a very charismatic guy in a lot of ways, and people recognize him as the pastor, but he did not have the administrative kind of abilities that is required for someone there. So everybody has their gifts. John's was not administrative, and maybe your man isn't administrative, but there are people who do that for him.
Well, that's a big debate, because first of all, it may be required, but it isn't necessary, because there are people all over the place who know how to administer things who aren't necessarily, that's not what you're ordained for. You're ordained to preach the gospel, to give an example of the gospel, and to listen and engage the people in the life of Christ and grace.
Yes.
Those are the first 3 things. And if you're doing that, and it seems to me your priest, Tim, has the potential to be the one to do that. So the other stuff should be done by someone who's expert in it.
Well, that's why God. Why
are you going to make, the reason you became a pastor? Why are you going to be make that secondary, whether or not you get? I don't know what the.
We're getting an echo.
Yeah,
Frank.
So if someone's on both their phone,
it's Fred. It's Fred. Fred, you're on twice, Fred.
Knock it off, Fred.
Fred, you're on twice.
Okay.
Turn off the phone.
Give him a little time.
Or the computer.
Yeah, it's gone, isn't it?
I'll be right back.
Are you with us, Fred?
Turn it off altogether.
It's you. It's clearly you, Fred. You hear that reverberation, Fred, when you talk?
Yeah, I did.
Where's Tom? I'll be right back.
The teddy bear is cute, but not very helpful.
So it's off. It's off because I'm not reverberating.
How about Fred?
Fred, are you there?
Yep.
That's it. It's gone. It's done. We're okay.
No, it's still there. It's still.
It isn't. It's not for me.
It's only on.
It's back.
How do I?
So is it there now? It's not, I don't hear it. Do you hear it?
Well, Fred has to talk first.
Are there two devices on, Fred?
That's
That I know that could be the case.
Wow, that was a
Fred,
long...
Fred, mute yourself on one device.
He is muted in one device.
Yeah, he is on the other. Now he's muted on
talk.
both.
Now talk. Fred?
He's now muted in both devices.
Oh, only on one. Mute yourself on one.
Hey, Daly, is that Irish whiskey you're drinking? Is that Irish whiskey?
Oh. No.
Oh.
It's peach. It's peach. You know, not so early in the day, or not so lucky.
Okay.
It's peach tea or something like that. Yeah.
While Fred's trying to come on, Tim, how come there's such a large church or the edifice? It's 1,000 people where you live.
Yeah.
What's the story on that structure?
Well, for a long time, the parish was founded in the late 19th century. I don't know why, because essentially we were founded by Scots-Irish Presbyterians in this part of North Carolina. You know, this is a big Appalachian area, and so it's a lot of Scots Irishmen. And there were about 10 families who were Catholic who immigrated from someplace up north. And so they founded this Church of Immaculate Conception, and then it just grew because we have become, this area of North Carolina is really a retirement haven. The population is elderly. It's attractive to people who live in the UP of Michigan or upstate New York, because we have mild winters and mild summers, and so it's just grown and grown and grown. And so in the Diocese of Charlotte a couple of years ago, I saw it was one of the fastest growing dioceses in America because of in-migration. You know, people, we call them halfbacks. These are folks who moved from the north to Florida and they don't want to go back. They hate Florida. And so they come halfway. So they come to North Carolina. And so the church need was really pretty significant. Yeah, halfbacks. And so
it was never meant to be the cathedral for the area.
Oh, not at all. No. The basilica is in Asheville. Yeah, the basilica is up in Asheville, which is about 30 miles from here. And so
is that the seat of the diocese as well?
No, Charlotte.
Charlotte.
No, we're the Diocese of Charlotte.
That's a long way off.
Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Did Tom behave?
Don't take Teddy away. Don't take Teddy.
There were a couple of times that Teddy couldn't solve our problems. We're glad you're back. I guess he's muted now.
That's Tommy Bear, not Teddy Bear.
Oh, okay. He doesn't have a lot to say, Welbers. He doesn't have much to say.
Well,
yeah, but he's cuter.
True.
We asked him about Cambria and he didn't say much.
He didn't say much. Well, he didn't go.
He doesn't. You don't take him.
No.
Oh.
Somebody's got to guard the house.
How long does it take to get to Cambria, Tom?
Before we go on, Fred, you're on twice.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah, he's been echoing all over the place.
Yeah. You're
Help us, Tom.
muted
Help
on
us
one
out.
of them.
I don't see that I am.
Okay.
Can you mute one of them, Tom?
Gotta turn
No.
it on.
One of them
is muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to remove that one.
Okay.
That'll
And
I
fix
didn't
it.
know you had that kind of power.
Yeah, I do.
There we go. Fred, you can talk
Fred.
now. You're not going to echo. No, no,
Fred, Fred,
unmute yourself, Fred.
yeah, Fred, say something that we can hear.
There you go.
Well, Tom knows what he's doing as opposed to me.
Yay!
Sound just fine now.
You're back, Fred, and
You're
not
alive again,
the
Fred.
echo, not the
Okay,
echo.
there you go, Fred. Now we're all set.
Good job, Wilbers.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Norm,
welcome
you're
back,
muted.
Tom.
Tom, how long does it take you to get to Cambria from?
About 5 hours.
And where is it,
It's
Tom?
about 235 miles.
Now, is it past Morro Bay as you head north?
Yes.
Is-
Best.
It's about a half hour beyond Morro Bay.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Church,
Beautiful
And
area.
so, oh, is it? Oh, yeah, the whole area,
About
yeah.
about 5 miles south of San Simeon.
and this
Okay.
giant rock out there in the bay too.
In Morro
Morro
Bay.
Bay,
Morro Bay.
Yeah.
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 With
yeah.
a decommissioned power plant that has 3 huge iconic smokestacks that are very controversial now because whoever owns it is planning to take them down because they're an eyesore. But a lot of people there say that that is one of the icons of
Morro Bay.
Morro Bay, and don't take it down. We'll lose our icon.
The big
I
rock
think
is
it's,
there.
I think it's a decommissioned nuclear power plant that was owned by maybe PG&E, I think, if I'm not
I'll
wrong.
call you back.
No, you don't have smokestacks on a power plant, on a
Right.
nuclear plant.
You have
Oh, you do
cooling towers.
too.
The
You have cooling
tower.
towers. Yeah.
Yeah, you
you've got
have
2
cooling
months.
towers, but these are very slender, very tall smokestacks.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh,
okay.
clearly it was probably built to be oil burning. But then,
Probably Unical brought tankers up to feed it.
oh yeah.
We've done plenty of mischief up there. Not
Well, you know, in that area, I think it was Chevron. Avila, the town of Avila Beach, which is near Pismo Beach, you know, had to be completely closed down, and the whole surface, the surface soil decontaminated, and was then allowed to reopen.
And that was Unical.
That was Unical.
Yeah.
That was about 10 years ago, I think. So the whole town basically had to be moved out and then moved back in.
We or let's Unical just completely changed that whole area.
Mhm.
Park, new
Maybe.
retail.
Oh, by the way, here's a cup from the J. Patrick House where we stayed. A bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
We have the next town to me is Plymouth Rock, and there's a decommissioned nuclear power plant there. And the decommissioning company is now in a controversy between the state and local and federal governments because they want to dump 1 million gallons of water into Cape Cod Bay.
Oh,
Sounds
Only
familiar.
1 million?
1 million gallons, yeah.
which they claim is not contaminated, right?
Well,
Like
it's they say it's decontaminated to a safe level.
Yeah.
But just
But-
optically. I
But
mean,
anyone, but things related to nuclear. So what's a safe level?
it was
And
exactly the
the
question.
anti-nuke people basically say there is no safe level.
Correct.
Right.
And then the others say, of course there is. And there you go again.
Well, because it's built on Cape Cod Bay, that's the least expensive. There are other ways for the company to dispose of it, but they're much more expensive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, pardon me for interrupting. Whoever was
That's Gibby.
Gibby.
I think we forgot who was holding forth.
Oh my.
How is your granddaughter, Ned? How is she doing?
Oh, she's great.
Yes.
Doing
Okay.
wonderfully. They haven't
Right.
had an opportunity to test her hearing again. I don't know why. That bothers me quite a bit, but she's beautiful. She's growing. She doesn't cry a whole lot, at least not as little babies are wont.
Ouch.
Yeah.
But
And the hearing connection with the not crying, what does the neonatal specialist and pediatrician say about that?
well, that's what I mean. I would have had the baby there the next day, and neither Mark nor Kim seemed to be worried about it. So when they first told us that she hadn't passed the hearing test in one ear, they qualified it or elaborated on it by saying that this particular report of not passing the hearing test was not unusual, and I didn't understand that. But they haven't seemed to be concerned about it enough to have, she was born on Friday a week ago, and they haven't gone back for the other testing. Otherwise, she seems just fine. She does cry a lot at night, but during the daytime, she sleeps and eats and sleeps and eats and smiles
and poops. Yeah, yeah.
Oh God, I love that. Yeah.
Good for her. She's doing her job, sleeping.
Yeah. She thank you very much a lot for asking, Frank, but she just seems to be thriving.
Good.
So thank you.
Nice.
That's probably what's going to happen to us as we get older.
Right.
I've thought a whole bunch about that. How we start as completely dependent and then grow into leaders, I hope, or in participating, and then we go right back to I won't say uselessness, but
I love it, Gary, as we get older. Hey guys,
Look
look at the screen.
Right now it's a number.
You sound like my doc. I'll say something and or she'll say something and I'll go, hey, I'm not as young as I used to be, and she'll say, age, that's just a number.
There you go.
So
Frank, you were talking about Michael Sean Winters and that article this morning about the Eucharistic Congress and the people. I know the apostolic delegates supposed to speak.
Yeah.
But he mentioned that and Tom, I think you mentioned this as well, that the whole Eucharistic thing was based on some, as he said, poorly worded question in a survey about the real presence or something.
Yes, the Pew.
The Pew survey, what, about at least 10 years ago? 8 or 10 years ago?
That's why I want a pastor at the synod, because I was a pastor and I never celebrated mass in a church where at the consecration there wasn't not just a lack of noise, but there was a profound silence. That's indicative of the fact that people believe, even if they can't explain it in Thomistic terms.
Yeah.
Shame on them.
And this is over the head of everybody from Broglio to Brogliogato, or what has someone called it? The Broglio imbroglio with Bergoglio.
I love
it. Frank, I like what you said, because I've come to understand what you meant by that is that understanding is not necessary for belief. And I think our previous pastor tried to take the notion of the Eucharistic presence and have people understand it. And he was very frustrated when people didn't understand it. But then he's not Thomas Aquinas either. But for example, when I subscribe to a website on the James Webb Space Telescope, and I think Tom Welber's also probably, and I believe what I see, but I don't understand it. And I was listening to some of the testimony in the House of Representatives where they had these pilots who had seen these unexplained aerial phenomenon, yaps, I call them yaps. And no one can explain it. And actually, I'm not so sure how many people even believe that they're real yet. But I think that when it comes to my faith, just speaking personally, there's a whole lot that I'll never understand. But as my wife said, I don't need to understand it. I just need to believe it. Now, I don't know if that's a naive, childish kind of attitude to have. I'm not so sure. And she and I
the
kind
other
of
thing about this U.S. bishops thing is a precise understanding in Thomistic terms.
Right.
Now, the thing is, I'd like to see a comparison between Catholic and Roman Catholic and Orthodox understanding of the Eucharist in terms of that survey. Because I would think that devout Orthodox, they're not that comfortable with talking about symbols either. They're very good at living them. But I don't know. But the whole thing just needs to be better understood on the part of our leadership.
Well,
of course, it's Bishop Barron. Barron is the one who instigated all of this. He's the one who got up in a snit about the results of that survey and couldn't let go of it. Now, the saving grace there is it may have been he and this Eucharistic survey or this Eucharistic revival idea that saved us from this overemphasis on Eucharistic coherence as a condition for or as a reason to deny politicians communion. It at least kind of sidetracked that conversation a little bit. And they got off from that narrow focus of who is worthy to receive communion as into and understand, we need to broaden the understanding, the base of understanding. So that might be a good thing.
Do you think that, and I've thought that somehow or other, some of these guys are confusing real with physical?
A lot of people do.
With physical presence.
Yeah.
That is one hell of a conversation, it seems to me. I'm hoping that the Pew thing that Barron got a hold of and did make a lot about using Flannery O'Connor as a real shocker by saying, if it's just a symbol, to hell with it, and all that kind of stuff. It seems to me that a whole lot of folk, that I'm a Eucharistic minister, and when people come to receive the Eucharist, at least in my experience and in my imagination, these people are so devout. I mean, there's no question in my mind that they know that this is Jesus, his body and his blood. And if they don't understand it, so what? And it seemed, I hope that it would be that the Pew report was talking about people who, 20-30% don't understand it rather than don't believe it, because it's just crazy. And I think that debate about real and physical, I think that's a hell of a conversation.
Where is God not present?
Well, of course.
And also,
but this is a very unique, different thing, and I just can't get away from scripture. You know, scripture was so clear and
Focused. It's a focused presence, but I mean, I don't know. Frank, you were
Well,
gonna.
I mean, it seems to me that we must go back to Tim's original insight and say we must honor faith because it's what we all seek. Now, some of us in our lives have been given the benefit of being involved in trying to understand our faith more deeply, but that doesn't come to everybody.
no,
And so the first thing we do is honor faith when we see it.
absolutely.
When our people, regardless of whether or not they can address it, and I'm not against teaching them to kind of understand. I'm not against that, but I'm saying, when we come to a situation with them, and there's this overwhelming expression of faith, then we shouldn't get all tied up with the fact that they don't understand it in the terms of Thomas Aquinas. We should first honor the faith and encourage them to do whatever they can to understand something that none of us will ever completely understand. Even people like Fred, if I might say so, has spent his entire life searching.
Yeah, well, Fred, the faith, seeking
well, Fred has
understanding, isn't that the theologians?
Yes,
yes.
yes.
And so who's privileged to be a theologian?
It's a never-ending road.
Yeah.
Right, you're always seeking.
Rattling in the back of my brain is the Anselmium fides querens intellectum.
Right.
I mean, faith pursuing, faith seeking, understanding. But first, faith.
Right.
Yes.
Faith.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's nothing
pursuing understanding. Faith seeking understanding.
Fred, what do you think about that? I mean, what's your take on it?
Well, a lot of the problem has to do with the understanding of symbol. And symbols, it seems to me not quite intelligible to say just a symbol. You see, because symbols are overwhelmingly important for our lives. And what the symbols really have to do with is our deepest feelings. And for me, pathos or feelings come first, understanding comes second, and a way of life comes third. And the understanding that comes second is not really necessary for the way of life, the ethos. So
Right.
pathos, logos, ethos. So in other words, it has to do with understanding mystery as not having to do with mystery mongering, but just something that's beyond our capacity to understand adequately.
Yeah. Amen.
And that the reality of the thing doesn't depend on our understanding or not, because symbols evoke feelings, and feelings invoke some understanding, but more important, the feelings are what really automatically move into ethos or way of life.
Yes, absolutely.
So when we receive the Eucharist and we listen to "Do this in memory of me" at the consecration, we have to remember that memory is constitutive of our meanings and values in our life, and that's not unreal; it's real. So the phrase "just a symbol," which Flannery said, is a little bit misunderstanding of the meaningful reality of symbol. because our lives are constituted by meaning. And what symbols are all about is meaning, even if the meaning is really only registered most deeply by our feelings.
Fred,
And
excuse me a
yep.
second. Let me, I just need a question here. You made the statement, memories are constitutive of
Meaning.
rephrase that.
Our lives are constituted by our meaning, by our memory, I should say. So when we hear, do this in memory of me, what we're really talking about is the constitutive meaning that is integral to our belief, our faith, our love of God.
Okay. One of the things that brings up to me is, the teaching of the church, the magisterium of the church is essentially a bearer of memories. It's a bearer of the memory of the faith of our ancestors.
Yes.
So memory is important. It influences us still in our life.
Of course,
well,
of course.
Our lives are constituted by memory.
But the point is, I think we talk about
what you were doing and so forth.
We talk about the teaching of the church as being something definitive, even if it's ex cathedra. But what is that teaching if not the bearer, the humble bearer of memory? The way that the church, the way that the faithful believed in the past is now humbly handed on to us as a memory as our collective memory. Now, that's why I think church history and historical theology is such an important thing, because it touches the collective memory of people of faith.
Yes, and our memories are constitutive of ourselves.
Yes.
If we had complete amnesia, we wouldn't know who our parents were,
you'd be lost.
Grandparents, or what basically is the constitutive meaning of our particular lives.
Which was well explored in that movie of some years back, Memento.
I don't know that.
Which is part of the tragedy of dementia, literally the losing of oneself, the disappearance of oneself.
Yes.
That's why it's so scary that,
that
stuff, you're out there in the ocean and you've got no bearings, no coordinates, nothing.
Absolutely terrifying. One sign of hope, and I think I had shared this once before, I remember coming across in the writings of Teilhard de Chardin related to medicine, psychiatry, and particularly the whole aging process. And he in so many words said, as the person disappears because of dementia, God's spirit begins to fill in and take over in the person who is gradually disappearing. It's very beautiful. It speaks to me about the experience, and you don't have to experience it as you're tending to a person, or it's there if you believe, even if you don't. God loves us so much that God takes care of that, even for those who acknowledge nothing.
Well, I would question, I would at least question whether or not with dementia or Alzheimer's, the person actually disappears. I think certain expressions that indicate memory are gone to the outside world, but I'm not sure that the deep meaning that Fred is talking about ever. I mean, isn't that the wellspring of the grace of God? If that ever disappears.
I completely agree with you, Frank. it's an emptying, gradual emptying process.
What's apparent to
But
us?
and what happens is, I mean, again, Teilhard's observation on that was that
Right.
God begins to fill in the space that is emptying. So there,
Right.
so that the essence of one, you like the soul linked to the super soul, the spirit of God, where
Well,
we're going to eventually go home to.
Bob,
Right.
was Teilhard addressing anything like Alzheimer's? We don't know. All we can do is hope. I'm terrified, as someone said, I can't remember, of stuff like dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah, me too.
Because we have absolutely no idea. We can hope that we're left with God filling in and entertaining us with this glorious wonder that he is, but we don't know.
Well, does the saying or the promise, I am with you always, even on the end of time, even to the end of time, which so often has gotten interpreted as kind of a Constantinian guarantee. Is that really actually the depth of faith? He isn't, whatever happens to us, he is in fact with us even until the end of time.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or as in the way Fred articulated just a few minutes ago, the ethos of practice, the behavior, the way of life may disappear in say Alzheimer's. Even the logos may disappear, become totally messed up.
Well, our faith
ultimately pathos remains, even if it may be difficult somehow to recognize it. The feeling remains.
That's what scares me about it. I don't know that that's the truth. I mean, consciousness is filled with memory, which locates us and gives us proprioception in our lives. And when we get Alzheimer's, where is consciousness? Are we wonderfully freed in some paradise of continually knowing God and emptying ourselves and being filled with him? Or does consciousness disappear and we're simply alive, blinking, not even wondering? Not how do you wonder? I remember that talk that you gave, Fred, wonderful talk back in the seminary about wonder. Remember that? I was so, but anyway, can we wonder? What can we do when we have that disease?
It is such a mystery. I remember a lady I had known these people. I've been in St. Vincent's twice in my life. I came as an associate for 3.5 years in the 1970s, and then I came back as pastor. And there was a family that I knew then, and then were there when I came back. And this woman, Therese Mohall, I remember one day she called
I've lost you guys
and talked to me, and she said just received a diagnosis that she was having Alzheimer's. And I remember her saying to me, I'm just so terrified about the fact that my family will put me in a home, that and all that, the way she described it. And we talked, and I didn't know, I mean, all you can do is listen. Later on, years later, I mean, certainly you could see her deteriorating when they would come to Mass, and her husband would lead her up for communion and stuff like that. Later on, then I kind of lost track, and I started saying Mass every week in one of the 4 or 5 rest homes that we have here in the parish. And there's one that has an Alzheimer's ward, and she was there. And I just remember they put her in the thing for Mass, and she'd be kind of, this and that. But I'd come up to her and I'd say, Therese. She didn't have a clue who I was.
Wow.
But I just the experience of her coming in when she had gotten the diagnosis and talking about it, and then years later, it all came true, and she was in a place, and she didn't have a clue who I was. It's a total mystery. I'd like to have that hope, Bob, that God fills the spaces.
Yeah,
Well, you think about Tony Bennett, who died last week.
Yeah.
And apparently he was even deep in his Alzheimer's, and I saw an interview with his son, is that we could remember his songs word for word, verse for verse, and he could remember the melody. And so I'm thinking to myself as you guys are talking, I wonder if, so in his deep Alzheimer's, if maybe music, Ned, was not playing in his head. That maybe he was enjoying the beauty of the music that he could remember. And I know Lady Gaga had said that when, because she apparently became a good friend of his, is that even though he did not remember that they had done this album together, I mean, the next day after they had, he didn't remember it, but she said he remembered every song, and that when he would be on stage, he didn't know what he was doing, but a song was started, and he could go into this beautiful melody. And so I'm thinking to myself that maybe then his soul, heart, and mind was filled with that memory of these things that were so important to him. I don't know. And so the thing that you guys are saying that gives me hope is, well, it would be wonderful to believe that that vacuum is filled by God. That would be awesome. That would be incredible.
and while we're still here, you're speaking to something very real, and that is it isn't so much treatment, but as part of the palliative care of those who are late stage, say dementia. Music is really important, so that the music that was so significant for me in my training at the Palo Alto VA, to have the music therapist come into the room and or have musicians come through fairly regularly, but to have the music therapist come in and play the cello, let's say, and if the person was known to be involved with church as part of their story, to hit a couple of popular hymns that most Christians might know if this was a Christian, and to see what happens, to observe what happens with the person in terms of facial and or movement or the mouthing. This is a person who doesn't speak anymore and supposedly has no memory, and suddenly their lips are moving to one of the classical hymns, songs, and really, really very striking. So again, pathos, they respond at a feeling level often, and the same applies, in for us, for ourselves. There may be some favorite hymns and stuff as part of our end of life care, to let our caregivers, whoever that might be, to know, have some good music that I like, and or leave that word. That's why I'm an advocate for the 5 wishes document, where you leave, it's written out, the instructions are, and you write, here's the music, play this, I'll be happy, even if I can't respond or anything. There is such a mystery to us, both coming into the world and coming from God and going back to God. It's so mysterious a process that we try to do, so that even if no longer the ethos and the logos are part of our expression, pathos is still there. right
No
to the
crime.
very end, to the point where we know that hearing is critical. You know, there's no accident. Tim, you know this from our favorite hospice nurse. Be careful what you say, because the hearing is still acute, even in a person who may appear to be unconscious. And then evidence in the last, say, 10 years also indicates that even more critical is feeling, literally pathos, touch. That to hold the hand or put your hand on the hand, or to hold, you know, what spontaneously happens with the dying, loving couple.
Right.
Holding their hand, or getting in bed with them and embracing them. But to touch, all absolute, that's absolutely critical. And it appears, even though the person appears to be completely unconscious, they still can respond based on the instruments that they're able to use for research, and know that there's still something there. And I think that symbolically, you know, 100 years ago, Teilhard intuited that at some level and was able to use God talk, you know, God filling in, the Holy Spirit, and medicine clearly has affirmed that.
I agree with you, Bob. That's so very, very important. That I go to a lot to convalescent homes. There's a lot of them here in Long Beach, and that's so important. The memories, the touches, the sounds, the music, all these things mean so much to people. Touch and music, especially.
Yeah, in the kit of the chaplains who are tending to end of life are believe if you know the person is, especially if the person is Roman Catholic, a crucifix, even a small one, a holy picture, the responses that you can get is so are striking, are amazing. The family will sometimes comment, I haven't seen them respond to anybody or anything. And that was like, oh my God, they're still there, to a photo. And the same way with regard to a favorite hymn, a favorite song, so that conversations with the family to say, does she have a favorite hymn or hymns? And so that's,
I saw that a lot with my mom as she was failing. She responded a lot to music because she loved music.
Yeah, so get on it, guys. Choose what you want played at your funeral.
I was waiting for Frank.
And the second thing, though, that I had an experience. I have a funeral tomorrow, and a week ago, last Sunday.
It's not your funeral, is it?
No. I went to
not
this.
Yours.
I went to anoint this person. I didn't know them very. I knew them, and our daughters were friends, etc. She was in hospice, and so when I went in, her husband was sitting on one side of the bed, and he said, Frank, sit over here. He said, because she likes to face this way. So I said, well, okay. I wanted to be comfortable. So he went and sat on the other side of the bed, and I thought to myself, well, the window is here, and this is where people sit. Her daughter is sitting here, etc. So I anointed her, and then during the course of, then I didn't walk out, of course. And during the course of staying there and talking with them a little bit, I noticed that she turned the other way, and her husband was holding her arm, and she was rubbing his, and he was rubbing her up and down. And so on the way home, I began to think. I called her husband the next day, and I said, Bob, you told me that she liked to sit in the window. She shouldn't sit on that side because she liked to look out that way. That's not why she liked to sit on that side. She liked to sit on that side because you were there. Because for the entire rest of the time I was there, her back was to me.
Yeah.
Right.
And she and you were holding her arms, and he said, Frank, you're making me cry. I said, Bob, you make me cry too. Yeah. So all of this kind of thing, some people claim that for 18 to 20 seconds after you're actually declared dead, you can still hear.
Uh-huh.
And so there is all of these things that we kind of really don't know about people, and so it argues very strongly not to ritualize what we've done, to do the ritual nicely, but also to remember that you don't, and it's done.
Right.
The grace of God comes in in the encounter.
Right. For those of us who are taking care of and have opportunity, like Frank, for those who are canonically active, particularly, but for folks who are in hospice care, here's a little secret or a little trick that I learned at the Palo Alto, which works beautifully, and hospices who know what they're doing, and there's a lot of them. Put a fan in the room, move the air around, because the sensation of moving air over the skin, it doesn't replace the human being who's there, but it's a very effective tool. What you were talking about, Frank, kind of turning toward the window. Well, I suspect, he might have, the husband was there, but I also suspect an occasional breeze or air. And people say, like in the wintertime, oh yeah, don't worry about it. Just watch what happens if you turn a fan on and let the moving air touch the person, particularly if no one is there to hold their hand. A little trick.
Yeah, I have a neighbor, and he's totally unchurched. Actually, his uncle was a cardinal of the Holy Roman Church.
Yikes.
But at any rate, his wife was dying, and so I said, Peter, can I come? And so I did, and we said prayers, and I consoled him, and he was really helped by it. But I didn't do anointing because she was not a Catholic and didn't, and more than that, was kind of angry with the Catholic Church, et cetera, et cetera. And so, then the next couple of days later, she died, and Peter said to me, her ancestry was Norwegian, and so Peter said to me, Father Frank, she went really closely. But the strange thing that happened is, at the point she died, the windows rattled. And I said, that is a strange thing, because there's the Norwegian custom that in the room of a dying patient, you open the window a little bit so the soul can fly off to God. So that's kind of and Fred, I would think there's a little kind of deep symbolism in that whole thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Ned, I'd like to push it over to you because it's so moving, your experience with George. And you want to share a bit of what you sense that we're dealing with right now?
Well, I don't know which part of, pre or post death, what process you're talking about, John, and what's your, locate your thought for me.
Okay, my thoughts are in the pre-death, your presence with him and his family, which was significant over that time, I think.
Well, I don't know what to say. That was just a completely, I don't know, I knew so much about George. I mean, we shared wonderful things, and we also shared not so wonderful things about our experiences. And all of that, I can't say it's going through my mind or my feelings, but I'm experiencing something that's a mix of all of that. Susan is next to him on their bed. He's on this hospital bed that they rigged up for him. She's holding his hand on one side. Betty's sitting next to him on in a chair and holding the other hand, and he's just lingering and lingering. Henry, his very close friend, is saying he's hanging on for some reason. He's waiting. He's waiting. That was the operative concept. He's lingering for some reason, and I'm sensing some wonderful things. And also, I don't know, does this sound crazy? The redemption of a lot of bad things and ugly things. It's just it's a sense of presence of George and a fading of George, and then this quiet. And then I had to leave. I don't know why I did that. I wondered whether Betty was upset with me, and John might have been upset with me. I just got up and left, walked around for a while, and then I got a call from Henry, and he said, "Ned, it's time. You know, his breathing is getting agitated, and you know, I think it's time." So I rushed back, and with all of this stuff going on in my whatever, it's a mixture of consciousness. Well, you know, using the language that Fred was talking about, the pathos. Pathos was just all over. And you could see it in people, in Susan and Betty, and it was certainly in me, and it's an experience I can't describe. I got there, and just before I got there, he passed, and his breath just kept going and going and going, I'm told, and then it was gone. And I was confused, but I sense him often, the good and the bad, and every time I do, there seems to be kind of a resolution of sorts, and that's the only word I can use. I can't tell you what that means, except that there's something good about it. And it's not, I don't think that I'm accepting it. I don't know what I think. I don't think. I just sense whatever's going on, you know.
Ned, you said something about
you're grieving well, Ned.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're grieving well.
I hope so.
I've had an experience through hospice and through family of people asking, why is mom hanging on? Why is why is someone hanging on? And like Henry, your dear friend who said he's hanging on for some reason. Well, I'm listening to you sympathetically and with great affection for what you did with George. And you left and George died. Maybe he was waiting for you to leave because let me fit, because maybe he, in a way, knew how difficult it would be for you to see him take his last breath, and that he was doing you a favor. Now that I've seen it with my mom. I saw it with my brother, and more than one time have I've seen that where maybe I am giving too much, not credibility, too much of something to the dying person, that they have any awareness of what they're thinking or what their motives are. But I've seen it too many times where a person will die after someone has left the room. And when I think about it afterwards, is that that person would be really hurt emotionally and spiritually by witnessing that. So I mean, you were a wonderful, good, wonderful friend, but maybe George was doing you a favor, Ned. That's just a stupid comment I'm making, but it comes to my mind.
I don't think you're stupid. It's stupid at all. I'd echo what you said. You said it eloquently. It just, I can remember visiting with some families, and the partner was just hanging on and hanging on. And it wasn't until someone suggested to the grieving spouse right there, when was the last time you took a little walk and had a cup of coffee? And they went, it's been hours. Go, come, go. One of the nurses will take you for a cup of coffee. And said, well, and guess what happened just while the person was out having their cup of coffee? I think exactly as you described. The person just very peacefully, quiet, took their last breath. Something's going on, and it is in a lot of ways very mysterious. We don't understand, but we try different ways of helping the person, let go, release, even sometimes verbally, right? I mean, you talk to the person who's there and just said, have you done the final stuff? Have you said, I forgive you for anything, please forgive me. And it's really okay. We're okay. You can let go anytime you like. And then finally, I love you. And magic stuff happens.
Well, the notion, for example, that someone can live their lives as a clear, distinct personality like George, who had no problem making decisions, that in the last moments of his life, he should lose the power to make a decision, just doesn't work.
Frank, that's yeah.
In my own experience, for example, my wife, the morning she died, she went, I was going out to teach, and I could leave her for an hour and a half or 2 hours. But I said, I won't leave. Why don't you go back and get a little more sleep? Then I'll get you up and shower and dress and all that, and then I'll go out. Okay. So she went back to bed. And I went, did my things, finished preparing the class I was teaching at the senior center, took a shower, shaved, everything, and went back at 9 o'clock, and she was dead. But my wife was a very private person who always hated hospitals and wanted to die in her home. And it seemed to me that she made the decision that this was the moment that she felt it was important and necessary for her to move on.
And your presence,
so
holding her there?
It hurt me deeply because I'd been with her 24/7 for 12 years that I wasn't there when she died. But I mean, that hurt me, This was the way she wanted to go, quietly in her own bed alone.
Everybody dies in their own way.
Exactly. And their own way is not, one should not expect that their own way is going to be radically different from the way they live their lives.
Good point.
Everybody dies the way they live. Everybody dies in their own way.
Right.
Bingo, you said it. In many ways, you triggered the thoughts of Mary Alice's passing. Right. She was so extroverted. The last thing she wanted was to be alone. She made that very, very clear. She wanted to be surrounded by her family and everything else. And I think I had told you once before, I still don't know what to make of it, but in the previous 24 hours before she passed, she spent hours and hours with visitors. people, she saw them, we didn't see them. She was having conversation with them. Even as she was lapsing into consciousness, she'd become animated. Her beautiful smile would return and her lips would move. And she had these extended conversations with visitors. And
Not a Bob. We both
this
know
went
that's
on,
not
and this went on
not
for
uncommon.
this went on
Very
for
common.
hours. It was so striking, and I'm so pleased that a number of close family members, because this was happening like literally in the middle of the night, like between 1 and 5 o'clock, just before sunrise, when she then lapsed into a different stage of the dying process and moved into unconsciousness. And
visiting hours were over, Bob.
Visiting, beautiful, exactly right. Visiting hours, and then she went into very deep calm for the next 7 or 8 hours, and then she passed very peacefully. I was blessed to be able to be lying on no hospital bed for her when she knew what was going on. She basically said, "I want to die in my own big bed." And I was in my big bed, and I was so honored, pleased to be able to lie beside her and hold her hand and talk with her as she passed.
Well,
Bob Bono.
Yeah,
Well,
that's me.
we haven't had a chance to. You jumped into this conversation. So welcome.
Well, I'm happy to be back. Last week I was up in Chautauqua, and so I'm trying to catch up with things. And I had something that commitment I made this morning and I thought it would be over quickly, but it wasn't. So I showed up after an hour when you guys were talking.
So what did you do in Chautauqua? What kind of activities did you do?
Well, they have, are you familiar with Chautauqua? They have all these different religious groups, each have their own house. And there's a Catholic mission house. So they always have 2 priests in that house. And then they have room for, I think, 7 other people who can, try to get into one or other of the rooms. And it's a beautiful house that goes way back, and it's been very nicely repaired. I had never been there. That was the first time I was there. But right across the street, right across the walking, because there's no road that goes by there, but it's just a brick walk that you can walk through the whole area of the Chautauqua. And right across the street is the big theater. It's open, it's open, and that's where the great speakers give their speech, and that's where wonderful music is scored, and they get some priest. This year it was one of the major Presbyterian priests who had been the head of Princeton, I think, with regard to the Presbyterian group. And so he gave a major talk on Sunday, and then every morning they have morning prayer. And he gave a talk every morning, kind of building one after another. I only heard the Sunday presentation and then one of them during the week, but I didn't hear the others. But a very well put together program. Prayer, music. He gave his homily. Basically, it was a homily. And then people go about many other things. I mean, the place is just full of events. And the people can go to whatever event they want to go to. And most of the people are going to one or another or several in the course of the day. So it was kind of a wonderful week. I enjoyed it.
Nice.
And where is it located?
It's it's on the west end of New York, down southeast a bit from Buffalo. So it's not right on the Lake Erie there, but that's where they're in that area of New York, just above the Pennsylvania border with New York, and a little bit inward, but based on a 36-mile lake that you can see across it. Beautiful lake, beautiful houses, all up and down. Some, beautiful, and others are rather simple. The people have lived there for a long time. Have a big, long golf course right across. I had thought about trying to play it when I saw how big it was. You need a car to go down to the other end of the golf course. So I just never did get across it. But they have all kinds of stuff going on. They have people. We had our Catholic masses down in the Episcopal church. They have a little wooden church, beautifully developed, and it's there. And so they have their morning prayer. I presume it's a morning mass at 8 o'clock. I think they do it, and we have our mass at 8:45 in the same building there. And then they have another place that's just a few houses down, where it's called a theater. It's not really what they call it. I forgot what it's called, but it's all about philosophy. It's like philosophers that can give a talk out, and it's under a heading, a building, but it's not something you have to go through a door. It's just you're under, if it's raining, you're not going to get wet. But they have the speaker up there that gives the talk, and then it's recorded and it's put out for people that aren't going to go there and sit there. And then they always allow people to articulate a question that they want to present to the speakers. And they have kind of a sorting of the different things that people have submitted as the questions they want to ask the whoever's giving the talk. And then there was very good conversation around that. So it was quite a meaningful thing. I enjoyed it.
Good.
Well, thanks for that report.
Yes.
Yeah. Sounds like a little bit more organized thinking than the Fratelli.
Yeah. The number of people there, COVID really hit it heavy, and it still has not recovered the number of people that were typically there in the past. And I'm not sure altogether just what is at play, but I think they were disappointed this year. They're making changes next year of cutting back on the number of musical events and the length of musical events. So they're trying to recover the strength that they used to have, where they had full house.
Bob, were there any ecumenical, the way you described it, at least the way I heard it, the Presbyterians would do their thing, the Episcopals, the Catholics, but was there ever a cross?
Oh yeah. The Sunday morning thing is more ecumenical. I think that the two of our priests, the two priests, I was one, and a guy by the name of Jim DePrilly, who's also a priest of Youngstown. He's become the head of the Catholic mission program up there in the house. So on a Thursday, we can only be there. Actually, the typical thing is 1 week. You can't be there for a month, can't be there for even 2 months or 2 weeks. So if you're there as a representative of the Catholic Church, you have to be prepared to give a talk. So Jim gave a talk and I gave a talk. And then next week, Jim will be there again because he's the president of the Catholic mission part of it. So, but the talks were given right next door at the what group was that right across the street? I'm blanking on it, but it was one of the other religious groups that had a bigger room. And so they let us have our presentations there. And we had a full room. They have their chapel in their building. And so they were okay with it. So anyway, that's the way they function. So there is I think there is an exchange. People from any tradition can go into any other tradition and try to, have conversation with the people, go be present to their own programs. They welcome you. And it's really a wonderful spirit. It's nobody's after anybody else. They're all willing to share.
What did you talk about, Bob?
I talked about the impact of Francis on the church and on the world. So a lot of what I did is I gave background. Many of the people were Catholics, and they were fairly well informed about Francis, but some others weren't so much. So I think the information I gave about Francis and my reading of him, I think that was well received. And then the second part was about the impact on church and world, was basically about the synod that's going to be held in October, and the instrument for that thing that the people have formed in the Vatican. It is going to be the basis of all the conversations that are going to take place in October over in the Vatican. So I tried to explain the basic points that were being made there. Seemed to me it was pretty well listened to and received.
Good. Bravo.
Oh, well, I'm not sure it's bravo, but at least I sounded off.
Wikipedia describes it very briefly as an adult education and social movement in the United States that peaked in popularity in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Chautauqua assemblies expanded and spread throughout rural America until the mid-1920s. The Chautauqua brought entertainment and culture for the whole community, with speakers, teachers, musicians, showmen, preachers, and specialists of the day. U.S. President Teddy Roosevelt said that Chautauqua is, quote, the most American thing in America, unquote.
There are spin-offs from that event. For example, there's one down either in North or South Carolina, I think, Tim. And there is one for sure in Ohio up on Lake Erie. It's not nearly as big an operation as what they have over there in the base thing in New York. But it is, and it's one of the things it's trying to do is stretch out into more and more of the country to have that kind of conversation about all sorts of things that are approached. It's not always religious, but it's about topics that are about the world in which the religious groups are trying to understand what's going on and to contribute to it.
I sort of think, Bob, the practical equivalent of it in this day and age are the whole TED Talk movement.
Yeah,
where just about any topic is covered, including religion, that happen every week and are available. You can YouTube them. You can look for a topic and stuff.
Well, it's more stuff that you can absorb.
Yeah, I think the proceedings, a lot of them are available online. The lectures and stuff.
If you put in, you can get it. I think you have to put in $45, and I don't know if that's for the whole. I think it's a 9-week program, and I know at least for sure for 1 week, for $45, you can listen and tune in to any of the programs that you want, because they put it out, and then I think it's on a website. But I think you do have to put some money in to get all of it.
And so, John Grammer, how is the food, number one, I hear that in places like you live, older women are like vultures going after good-looking men. Is that happening to you? And
Oh, Tim.
I saw a movie starring Morgan Freeman and De Niro or something like that, and they moved into one of these places in Arizona, and these voracious women, they said, "Oh, look at this guy," And so, John, are you resisting? How are you dealing with it, John?
Okay, I think I have to give a two-part answer. One, I hear people talking about me. In other words, when I go down the hall or go into the restaurant, I hear people say, "Oh, there's Johnny." I don't know if I've told you, there were 3 other Johns here when I signed up. It's 2 weeks now. Anyway, so I said, "Call me Johnny." And they made a little license plate. Maybe I'll show it to you. It's a California license plate that goes on the front of my walker that says Johnny. And so I'm the topic of conversation a lot, but I don't feel pushed in the relationship side. The first day I was here, I was given an ambassador. Her name is Jerry, Jerry, and she's probably a little bit older than I, but very social. And she took me on the tour around, and I can see her from time to time pointing, "Oh, there's Johnny." But I've had dinner with a number of other guests. And the one that I've had dinner with the most is another guy who has F-16 on his hat. He was a pilot in Korea, and he was an athlete. Guess what? Baseball and football got my attention. But he was an athlete at Arizona State and then got drafted and went to Korea and flew F-16s. He's full of stories and he loves to talk. And at least 3, maybe 4 times when I walked into the restaurant, he was sitting alone. So I put my hand up. He said, "Come on over." And the first couple days, I thought he talked too much. And then the third day, he was a really good listener. And so he put the ball in my court. So there's a good friendship building there.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yes, cool. That really is good.
Yeah.
Welcome to George Farrick, who has just joined us.
Hey, George.
Hey,
You're now our full complement.
Wow.
George,
So Johnny, when you go into the dining room, is there someone that directs you to maybe join another table, or is it just a free-for-all? I mean, how does that work?
It's more or less a free-for-all.
Okay.
There must be 25 to 30 tables, each with 4 seats. And several of the tables have the same folks almost all the time, kind of more like a closed group. But I would say
Cody, that's Cody.
yes. But I would say almost always there are at least 10 or 12 seats. Yeah. The food is fabulous. And at every meal, there are many choices on the menu. And they publish a weekly menu so that we can anticipate out in advance what are the foods, from barbecue to Mexican to prime rib. Breakfasts are amazing. I'm a big omelet fan, and they have bacon and cheese omelet. They have ham and cheese omelet. They have, there's another omelet. I can't even remember what it is now, but just tremendous variety. And that's why Krista, my daughter, said, Dad, this is like being on a cruise ship. You are
Is it Johnny? Is it like a buffet kind of thing, or it sounds like you order something? You know,
That's right. There are waiters and waitresses coming around. Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're going to expect, Johnny, that as time goes on, you're going to fill more and more of that screen.
Yeah.
Well,
Good.
it's
It sounds
wonderful.
good.
It's wonderful that you are enjoying it and that you know that it was the right decision.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Really.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Johnny, I know you told us the name of the place.
Park Plaza. Park
Yeah.
Plaza.
And who are the owners? Which corporation operates the place? Are they part of a larger family? I assume
They are part of a larger family. I just don't remember the name of that. But yes, they are part of a larger corporation.
Do you have any sense about how many Park Plazas, I know they're different names, there are across the US, or is it just a Southern California phenomenon?
I got the impression that one is in the Midwest and this one in Orange, California.
Okay, I have
Hey,
enough
Moby.
info. I could pursue
Good
them.
boy. Good boy, Moby. Just say hi. Just say hi.
George Ferrick,
Hey, George. Hi, Moby.
remove your background.
Yeah.
We
Hi,
can't
Moby.
get-
Remove my.
It's not getting Moby.
Yeah, we want to see
Yeah,
Moby.
okay. We got to get Moby here. Yeah, the big
Yeah,
dog
get rid of
is
your
coming by.
background. Get rid
I
of
can't-
the background.
It looks like he jumped off the bridge.
There he is. Hey, George.
You see
Welcome
Moby?
back.
No,
there's
we
Moby.
don't. We don't because the
Did he jump?
algorithm only tries to find your face, and it doesn't recognize
Okay.
Moby. So
It doesn't.
get rid
Starts to
of
look
the
like a
background.
UFO in and out.
Some fur ball flying there.
Yeah, well, I'd like to cooperate, Tom, but I can't. Logistically, I don't think I can take the time and do that while I'm walking him, and then somebody's walking toward me with the big dog.
Probably not. We'll have to use our imagination.
Take care of
That's
yourself. Take care of
No, but
yourself and Moby, George.
Moby, pick up. Well, I'll do it here. What about this? How's that?
There you go.
Hey,
That
Moby.
helps.
Hey,
As long
Moby.
as your
Moby.
face is in the picture.
Moby.
Hey,
George.
Moby. Hey, Moby.
George,
Yes, Moby. Yes.
Moby.
George, who takes whom for a walk?
Yeah.
Good question. I'll
You're
bet
right.
it's-
Every time I take my walk, I see people with dogs, and the dogs are in charge.
It's kind of a co-creation.
Oh, is that?
Yeah. We both take turns being in charge. Yeah.
Yeah.
If
And you
I
carry
can
the little.
for a second,
You have a little rubber, a little like a little bag, and a little with a rubber some sort of gloves to pick up the crap.
Here it is. Yep. I'm
And
well
then
equipped. You see that?
And you dump it. Yeah.
See
we
this?
needed that.
Where's the
Yeah.
bag?
See, that
There's a
shows
bag.
you who's in charge.
Yeah.
Moby
But I
doesn't
have
pick
to-
up your poop, but you
But
pick up his.
What I've noticed is that today is garbage day. So on Thursday night you got to put out your garbage cans. I wait till late at night to put it out because in the past, if I put it out too early, sometimes people with their dogs, they deposit their dogs' leavings in my.
Oh my God, Gary!
trash
Oh, how
can.
terrible! How terrible!
What else?
I've-
I would say just leave money. That would be fun. I should.
Gary, that's performing a
cannot put-
public service.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And, the origin of that, that's the origin of liturgy. It's a public service.
Yeah,
So
Good.
you are performing a liturgy there.
I like the one that I normally do.
Now I cannot put my trash out the night before because we have so many bears in the
Oh,
neighborhood
yeah.
that they love to climb in, knock it over, and eat everything in there. And it's more work to go and clean it up before the garbage man comes. So,
Yeah.
John Grever, what are you holding up there?
our classmate, Gary Neer, has written this book. He's a PhD psychiatrist, lots of counseling, and he sent me the book, and I just finished it, and I called him up, and he's in a fascinating place. He lives in Canada, but I mentioned to Tom that I would be delighted if we would consider him. And Tom suggested, and Tom, I'll put the ball in your court. I think you suggested that we might invite him to be a one-time guest and then let it be sort of a mutual discussion. So Tom, that's my service to you. Neer was a good tennis player, you might remember.
Okay, the ball is not in my court, the ball is in everyone else's court.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm for that.
Hot potato.
I vote yes. I vote yes for
Be fine to see him,
a
sure.
one-time visit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
George, this is the Gary you had spoken of before and shared a book with me from him. Is the guy was a former Trappist as well as
Yes. Yes.
yeah, and he's not an MD psychiatrist, he's a PhD psychologist.
Right.
Oh, psychology.
University of, Catholic University.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, here's another, I vote yes for that.
is there consensus to invite him as a guest for our confab,
Sure.
I say yes.
guest next?
Yes.
I say yes.
Yes. Any particular topic we'd like to hear from him about, or because I think he has a fascinating story. I mean, just his journey is a fascinating journey.
It is a fascinating journey, yes.
Why does he talk about that?
Yeah, that'd be fun. And so let me ask you, who has seen Gary Neer in the last 60 years?
Who's lecture?
In the last 60 years.
I've seen him a
Many of
couple
us
times.
saw him when
We had a Teddy Howard.
when we were at Teddy Howard's. There were about 6 or 8 of us, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
When was that, Tom?
3 years ago? 2
Probably,
years?
Pre-COVID, so
Oh,
before
wow.
COVID, huh?
What's his last name?
Near.
Kneier.
Okay.
Sat just behind him in the seminary.
Oh, that's right.
AKL, yeah.
Now,
That's-
didn't he have red hair?
Yeah,
Was he
red hair.
redheaded?
Yeah,
He did.
he was a left-hander, was he not?
Yes.
I was so jealous of him in high school because he used to come down. I think his dad had a ski boat with a big Mercury outboard engine on it,
I think you're
and
right.
he used to come down to Long Beach to Marine Stadium, and my dad had a boat that didn't have a big engine on it, and Gatlin and Crowell and us and maybe Norm, even you, maybe Johnny, we would get together with Neer when he brought his dad's boat down. And I thought, geez, you son of a gun, you're so lucky to have this high-powered, fast ski boat. And I remember him being smart and a good athlete, but maybe that's just,
No, that's accurate.
Yeah.
Smart, very smart, very good.
redhead with freckles, a redhead with freckles.
Isn't that fascinating? You talk about the speedboat, and where did he go when he left us from the seminary? But into a monastery for what, maybe 20 years or?
No, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, it was about 5 or 6 years, but yes, it was a Trappist monastery, yes.
Yes.
Did I hear that he has left the church? Is that a true statement?
No,
Pretty much.
no, I don't think so. He goes over, he spends his Christmas in monasteries in Europe, going to the Christmas services.
Well, I
I
interpreted Tim's question as a little more, narrow than that.
Well, I think he's as much in the church as I am. Let's put it like that.
Uh-oh.
That's cool. Yeah.
We're in trouble.
So I'm kind of, I'm kind of in the fringes. But I don't know if he, I don't know if he goes to church every Sunday or not, but he's certainly a spiritual person who every Christmas he and his wife go to Europe. They didn't do it during the pandemic, but he goes to the Christmas services in various monasteries and makes a retreat there. So I think he's a Roman Roamin Catholic.
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah,
Good call.
that's good. That's cool.
And spiritual for sure.
Yeah, but I have another candidate as a guest. One of our classmates in Rome. I don't know if you met him, Frank or Bob. Are you on the call too?
I am.
Bob Bonneau?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, his name was Joseph Udeman, Joe Udeman, and we became friends. He was from maybe the Capuchin monastery, but anyway, he's a retired bishop in Australia. And if you're interested, I could see if time permitting, he could be a guest. It might be interesting to get the Australian experience of synodality and what's going on over there and so forth.
Why
Anyway,
not?
How do you spell his last name, George?
Udeman.
Okay.
Udeman.
You've mentioned it before. Yeah, you
Yeah.
said stuff out about him. Yeah.
Right. I did mention it.
That
Yeah.
would be fascinating. I think it'd be interesting.
Right. You know, we're sort of running low on time, and this is a fascinating topic of interest to me. That is, say, I suspect any number of us have a lot of folk who would make just terrific visitor guests, including I'd love us to occasionally have some women join us, and I know that we know some very interesting people. But what we need to talk about is, simply because a person is a guest, does that mean you extend an invitation for them to continue? Because boy, the number we have right now works beautifully. Although another 112 would probably work pretty
We
well.
made that mistake with you and Bob and Frank. Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah,
leave
we-
for
yeah.
another thing that I'm supposed to be
Yeah,
on here. at
we
3
made
o'clock,
that
so-
mistake. We invited
See you
you
next
for
week.
one and you wouldn't go home. Yeah.
I wouldn't
Fred
argue.
was
I
the
wouldn't
first
argue
one.
with you at all, Tim.
You notice I've been uncharacteristically silent in this discussion.
Well, yeah. Well, Tim's on shaky ground because that's the way he started off too.
I know. I
So
know.
he's on shaky ground.
And
Well-
George was
Throwing rough,
adamant at keeping it. Remember, George was adamant about keeping it at a certain level.
Now,
Yeah.
Gary and Norm were specifically invited to be part of the group, as I recall.
Yes, correct.
Yes,
Not,
not
not
just
just
one timers.
guests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not one timers,
When
but
we started, we were thinking of 5. Remember?
Right.
And then 12.
Well, I guess Ned, you should channel George Crook and see what he says.
Yeah, right.
I know what George would say.
Great call.
He was very adamant. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was just thinking of the kind of conversations that we would
Yeah.
have and how close, how far deep we.
I think it would be great to visit with Gary, to visit with this bishop. I think it would be
Yeah.
very fascinating.
Hey, what I will do then, in the next day or so, I will set up the link for our next week's conversation.
Perfect.
And send Gary an invitation. Based on our consensus, I will also copy everybody else.
Can Tommy the Bear come back next week?
Almy, give it the thumbs down. Hurry up.
Yeah, okay. Tommy the Bear is a place.
Hey, we got a whole George.
Very shy, for one thing. Tommy Bear is very shy. You may have noticed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I've
But
got to
he's cute.
sign off. We
we
have
all
some
need to
out of
sign
town
off.
guests next Friday. I may not be able to make it, but I'll catch up via video and if you invite Gary.
We'll see.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, he
Okay.
may not be available next time. Whenever, there's a confluence here of stuff.
Sure.
So I'll invite Gary and see what happens, but I will keep all of you informed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, shall we call it a day?
We
Yep.
give you
Yep.
Day and have a wonderful weekend.
yes,
A wonderful
thanks for
weekend
these
also.
and all the benefits we've received from your bounty through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
Ciao, ciao.